Welcome to my podcast. This is Mary Turderoff, and you are listening to Jump In with Mary. Hello, everyone. Today is a good day because my law school friend of 20 years is here. We have Jeanann Khalife in the house.
Woo, woo!
She is fire on fire on fire. But before we get into a very, very controversial topics, I want to properly introduce my friend. She is a kick-ass woman.
Thank you.
You're welcome, my love. I want the listeners to know a little bit about you. She is a family law attorney. She litigates, and she's also an incredible mediator. She's been doing this for a long time, working with a lot of families. And I want to say how incredible that is because I tried all these externships in law school. When you go to law school and you're not sure what you want to do, they tell you, go on an externship, try family law, try criminal law, try, intellectual. And the only one I couldn't survive was family law. It was really hard. It's for people who have thick skin, can really stay the course. And it's not an easy field to be in. And I just want to give that credence that you're in the field, and it's so difficult and scary that this is a fact. And then I'm going to give the mic to Jeanann. It's a fact. When I was doing the externship, which I pretty much dropped out of, I couldn't survive it. They had 3 times more gun security in family law courts. This is a fact in comparison to criminal courts. I had no problem walking into 3 times more gun security, like courtroom security. It's not an easy job, Jeanann. How have you survived it all these freaking years?
A lot of self-care, Mary. And having great friendships like yours, where I could just laugh and be myself. And I always remind myself, being an attorney is just one part of me. It's not my whole identity. And I think that's where a lot of people fail to recognize is it's just one piece of you. You don't need to live it, breathe it, eat it all the time. And just a funny little fact is that I swore off family law in law school. I refused to do the externships. I refused to take the classes. I first time studied for, community property was for the bar exam because I just didn't want to touch it. And then I fell into it and I realized, wow, I'm helping people and I'm able to be some sort of sound, or voice of reason, you could say, through this very tumultuous time in their lives, because no matter how amicable the couple is, you're basically mourning a relationship, you're mourning what you had, you're lost for the future, and you have no idea which way to go. And then you have some attorney that's going to sit here and be like, no, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should do this. And how can you trust if that attorney really has your back or if they just have their back and their billables?
Right.
Right?
Totally.
So I kind of found it as as a blessing for me, in so many different ways, in so many different layers of my life, just to practice family law. And we'll get into that, obviously.
Yes, that's incredible. But I'm glad I brought that up. I just wanted for listeners to know, it's not for the faint of heart. So you are a really tough woman. Let's go back. I want to tell a little story. And before I do, I want to mention that Jeanann is wearing a hijab. So if you are meeting her and you're not as lucky as I am, I'll tell you why I'm so lucky. Because I did sleep with her in a room.
It sounded so
Yes, I know. I did that I have slept with Jeanann in a room for a mock trial competition. We shared a hotel room. But she wears a hijab. She's worn a hijab since the day I met her in law school. And that was very striking to me because I think we're going to get into stereotypes and very controversial topics. But that's one of the things, right? What you see, you attach a stereotype to. I saw you and I thought, okay, this girl's got to be really quiet and submissive. And boy, was I wrong. You are not quiet. You are not submissive. You stand up for yourself. You empowered me. And I realized I'm the one that's not standing up for myself. But we went to a competition. We had to share a room, Jeanann and I and another lovely friend who we have. And the 3 of us gals were in our very early 20s, were sent by this law school to compete on behalf of the school. And we know each other, but I'm in the room, we're getting in our pajamas, and for some reason I didn't know if I thought the hijab would stay on, just my ignorance. And suddenly it was like a movie. Suddenly Jeanann starts to beautifully, gently, by the way, she has no idea I remember the story.
No.
She starts unraveling this hijab, and it was like, oh.
No.
And I was just looking, this beautiful hair fell to her hips, and I was stunned. Point of my story is there is a magic to not having seen your hair. And a lot of people will judge you. I mean, you know that you've lived your whole life in judgment. Like, why is this woman covering her hair? Doesn't make sense. What's so intimate about that? It's just a scalp with hair.
You're not liberated.
You're not liberated. But in that moment, I felt like the magic of not having seen that part of you. And there wasn't and I was like, wow. I remember telling you, you're gorgeous. And you are gorgeous now, but then it's like, wow. And it was a moment. I'm just sharing that.
Yes.
I could feel like why it felt special, intimate. And I was processing a lot of it because I've never had a friend who has worn a hijab. And we made you an offer that you refused, which said a lot about your character. My friend, this other friend, our mutual friend, offered Jeanann. We said, listen, we're out on this competition. We're like 22 at this point. We know that your hijab is very representative of a lot of things, but we can go out to a club. We can all wear pink wigs. Nobody will know it's you.
Oh my God.
And you said no. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, I don't understand. This woman can get away with murder, and we are going to all wear wigs. And the other friend, we were like trying to coax you into, you were like, no, I'm really content with where I am.
Yes.
It was shocking, beautiful. I was also 22, like, I don't understand. Doesn't she want to try it? Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That said a lot about your character.
Thank you. So I actually remember the pink wigs. When you said pink wigs, I remember that because…
You remember the offer I made you?
Yes, I remember that offer.
But what did you think? Did you for 1 second think, be honest, and I know you're here to be honest, but like, well, you weren't like titillated by it a little bit, like,
oh,
maybe,
of course.
maybe.
Of course,
Okay.
of course. But then you think back, for me, I always have these, it's like a scale, right? It's like, yes, it would be nice to do this and that. For example, I love fashion, and I love those dresses those professional dresses that come to the knee with the slit in the back, and you wear them with the stilettos and they just accentuate your body. I love those dresses. But at the same time, for me, I've made a commitment between myself and, you could say, my God, like, this is what God has asked me to do. And I have made that commitment, and I don't want to go back on that commitment. It's also when you dabble a little, then you start to dabble a little bit more, and you dabble a little bit more, and then you get lost in the mix. At least for me, it's kind of like when you're experimenting in things, right? And it's like, oh, I like this, but then do you really want to have more taste of it and then move away from your central belief system, or do you want to stick to your central belief system? Is that worth the sacrifice of trying to find yourself back to the common road that you want to be on? It's about me and my journey. It's not about anybody else's journey.
That's beautiful. So point of clarification number one on this hot topic is the hijab for you.
Yes.
We'll talk about other women. It's obviously not the case for everybody, but for you and for a pool of women.
Yes.
It's a relationship between you and your belief system. Call it God, let's call it a belief system.
Yes.
And it's not between you and the men controlling you.
Mm-mm.
You and mom and dad saying, this is what you got to do.
No.
Okay.
Not at all. So there's layers to religion and belief systems, right? There's the script, then there's how people interpret the script, and then there's how people implement the script. And a lot of times, especially when it comes to the hijab, people's need to control overrules the script, meaning their parents may force them into wearing it, but not, and they don't understand that this is actually a calling and it's a choice. Yes, God wants you to do this, at least in our faith, but if you're going to do it, you have to do it out of love, out of respect for what you're doing. It's not for your mom. It's not for your dad. It's not for your husband. It's not for society. It's for none of that. It's about, do you feel this will complete you and complete your commitment to God? And unfortunately, a lot of women don't have that same experience. And it comes from ignorance. It comes from ignorance, whether it's society or even just familial ignorance. And it also comes from fear of that if they don't force their daughters to commit to this act of wearing the hijab, that they may lose their daughters to society, or they may lose their daughters to a culture that they don't recognize, because we do live in a blended world. I don't like to call it a melting pot, because a melting pot, actually, you're stripping away what parts of identity you have, but it's a blended world. You're taking pieces of other cultures and you're merging them into your culture. And then you have the religious piece on top of that, which is another culture, you could say, and people are so afraid of that. Or there are a lot of people that like to control at the end of the day as well,
Right.
But, when I was of age, my dad came to me, just a quick story, and he's like, you're of age to wear the scarf. Do you want to do this? And I was like, yes, Baba, I didn't, he wasn't asking me, trying to convince me. He just really was concerned. It's a big commitment. That if you do this, that you can't go back on it. You shouldn't go back on it. And I sat there with myself and I said, yes, I want to commit to this. Mind you, I was very young, but
What's
also,
of age, just to clarify? 13?
usually when you reach puberty, right? But my parents didn't make it where you have now decided to wear the scarf, so now they did not take away the fun out of life, because the hijab isn't exclusive of fun, and that's how people misinterpret it to be. Like, we still went to swim lessons, tennis lessons, we had girls' trips, parties. I played sports in school. I kickboxed. I started kickboxing when I was 14. My parents didn't make me wear bland colors like people imagine it to be. I still kept my character. I still kept my personality. I still kept my likes and dislikes. It was just an added layer, and you just kind of change a few things here and there just to respect it. But at such a young age, there's not much to change,
Right.
Yeah.
I can't help, and you know me so well. I don't have to say this, but I will. I'm going to ask questions that I think like a collective group of people listening would ask, right?
Of
Like when
course.
you talk about, I visualize your father is talking to you, you're like a young girl, you're going through puberty. And the logical question is, why, if it is a relationship between God, this general question, God and the person, then why aren't the men in that community also wearing hijabs? Why has it been just for women? There is a sexual component,
Mm-hmm.
desexualizing women, maybe not in the US. We know some. Could you agree with me that in other countries like Tehran, Lebanon, like some women, they have to wear it, they'll get stoned. Like their life,
Mm.
I'm not saying your life depends on it. Their life depends on it.
Yes.
You are here as an empowered woman with a choice. Can you agree that that's not everyone really has a choice who's wearing it?
I could agree that in societies where people have rules that dictate what they have to do, such as the Taliban in Afghanistan and in Iran, they are forced to wear it.
Right.
They are not given that choice, and I think a lot of times it takes away from the beauty of it, from understanding it. It develops a resentment to it, and it takes
And it makes it hard for some people to believe your story, which I think is a punishment.
yes.
What they're doing, someone like you sitting here, it makes people question that you're saying, this is real. This is me and this is like self-care you were saying.
Yeah.
Like some people meditate,
Yes.
right? You're like, this is my connection to my God.
Exactly.
And people are going to doubt you. You've dealt with that your whole life.
Exactly. And like, there's something called mahabbah, which is it translates to lovingly or loving. Please, whoever speaks Arabic better than
Yeah,
me.
don't call this podcast and correct us because this is live and we cannot edit anything she says. Okay, go on.
No,
Wait, what is it? What is it? Mahab?
Mahabba,
You sound
with
so
love.
sexy when you say mahabbe,
Mahabba.
like with love, in love. Okay.
Yes. And so when you teach concepts with love and with understanding, those concepts are accepted way more than when you're teaching them with force, right? Or not teaching them at all, just implementing, right? And so it's unfortunate for me when I see women that have seen the negative consequences of living in a country where they're forced to wear the hijab, where they don't have a voice, where they cannot express who they are and their identities, when they don't understand me. It makes me sad because for me, I've seen the flip side of it, the reality of it, the beauty of wearing the hijab. And to go back to your question, maybe hijab for women is covering in this manner, but men also have to observe a sort of modesty in our faith as well, in my faith. It is their form of hijab. They can't just I don't know the details of it, so I'm not going to be the scholar on it, but they can't just walk around with their muscles all macho and there has to be some sort of a conservatism and respect for their bodies the way we need to respect our bodies when it comes to my faith.
Like they have like some kind of uniform, not a uniform, but some uniform restrictions.
No, it's not really a uniform restriction. It's just more dressing more conservatively, instead of walking around with say wife beaters on and having if they're muscular, showing off their muscles and all that stuff. It's just, you don't need to express everything in your body is what the point is. Yeah.
That's an excellent point. And this is a visual I am going to throw out there. A lot of people have seen this visual, and a part of it's kind of hard to see. So we're talking about the body, respecting the body, and it applies to both men and women in the culture in different ways. You go to the beach and you see a family who is observing. You could see, and the let's say it's a mom. Well, for me, I said mom, dad, little girl, little boy, or teenage girl, teenage boy. Dad and teenage boy are in trunks and it's hot as hell. We're on vacation. I was on vacation when I saw this, and it's not an unusual visual. It's 110 degrees. And then the little girl, teenage girl and mom are covered up, right? They're wearing bathing suit, but they're wearing a bodysuit.
Yeah.
And a cover and a hijab in 110-degree weather. And so then when we talk about observing some level of modesty as respect and a relationship to God, in that moment, just a human feeling, you can't help but think, why doesn't it apply to the boy and the dad? Why are they, the woman, it's hot. It's just unnatural to see that. Yeah. And then to see the other the male part of the family unit not in that covering, it feels like a punch in the gut.
It may feel like a punch in the gut to you, but I don't see it that way, honestly. I see it as, it's like when somebody says, I'm going to commit to not having alcohol, right? Just because everybody else at the party is having alcohol doesn't mean that they're going to drink a sip of alcohol just to blend in. Right? It's not about blending in. It's about taking what you're given with stride and with grace. And for us, it doesn't bother me. I actually feel cooler with it on than I do without it. Because I've been to private beaches where it's only women, you're in your bikini or...
What do you mean? Well, back up.
Yes.
There's a private beach where it's all women?
Yes. In
Shut
Lebanon
up.
and other
Tell me
Middle
about that.
Eastern countries. Yeah. First of all, Lebanon's is this, I don't want to say secular, but we don't force rules. Almost half the nation is Christian or Catholic in faith, and the other half is almost all... The other half is Muslim, and then there's a little bit in between of different faiths.
Right. And you were born and raised here. Mom and dad are from Lebanon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I have a lot of family in Lebanon. I love visiting Lebanon. It's a beautiful country. Your dad would say the same thing.
Oh, heck yeah. And, I got to come there with you one of these days.
Oh, yes. So they have...
Okay, tell me about this beach, though, because I have never been there. This is kind of surprising information. There's a separate beach, all women.
Yes.
So like even the towel, there's no towel boys. It's all towel girls.
It's all towel girls.
Okay.
People bring you drinks, they're all female staff. And, you walk through the doors, you check in, and then there's a room, you take off your clothes, and then you just go out.
And you're wearing a bikini,
a
normal bikini.
Or a bathing, whatever you feel. I mean, for the more conservative people, the more religious people, they still feel like a woman shouldn't wear a bikini in front of another woman just out of respect. And that's them, right? Like for me, I'm more in the middle and I'm just like, okay, where's the bikini? I'm going to put it on and I'm going to enjoy myself, right? And sometimes wearing the cover up actually feels much cooler than being that two-piece bikini.
And it feels, yes, I want to say it also feels familiar. Like I grew up with a very modest mom. So when we went to the spa, it wasn't like, oh, you just walk around nude. You can, but a lot of women wear like a bathing suit. And so as an adult, I do think there is a little bit of your body gets used to something.
Yes.
And right now, even when I go, I'm an adult woman, obviously, and I still feel uncomfortable. Like I still wear in a spa where everybody's nude, it's women, know, and I'm still, because I'm comfortable. And I think, is there a degree of you get so comfortable, it starts becoming uncomfortable even at an all-female beach to just go, ta-da!
It's
right?
Yeah.
It's unusual.
It's unusual. Yeah. It's like,
you've never done it. It's weird.
It's like when you first dye your hair a different color that you've never seen it and you're just like, what's going on here?
So it kind of feels like there's an irony there because they created the beach. The beach is there, but if I were one of those women, I'd be like, oh, this is kind of strange. I'm not used to this. So
I mean, I don't get sunburned. That's the positive side, right? Like I don't get sunburned. Like I have beautiful skin, not sun damaged, so you have to look at the positive.
Jeanann, you are something else. Yes.
You have to be positive about what your choices are. There's people choose to work out, right? And choose to eat healthy, even though they love pizza, this and that. You have to look at the positive. You can't just be like, God damn it, I want that pizza so bad, you know? And
for you, you're saying it's a 100% choice. It's not 95-5.
Yeah.
Like if you said, Mom and Dad, F that shit, I'm not wearing this.
Let me tell you this. My mom didn't start wearing the scarf until I was 5. And I had no freaking idea.
Okay.
Like I had no freaking idea. I don't think my dad had an idea about it. Like
that's groundbreaking. Pause. You're telling me Mom was not wearing a hijab.
Yes.
Groundbreaking. Because
she's al-moda, which means modern. She used to dress modernly. Wasn't just like, oh, she just didn't wear it. She was very much into fashion and things of that nature.
Like hoochie mama skirts? No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, not to that degree. But you know what I mean.
I'm just poking. Yeah. I'm just really going for the jugulars. I'm taking advantage of our warm relationship because I would be so intimidated to ask this question to any other Muslim woman. I would. Yeah. It's intimidating. It's a hot topic. So many stereotypes attached to your appearance.
Oh my gosh,
appearance.
Yes. People forget that I'm an educated person, that I have feelings, that I have emotions, that I have thoughts, that I have character, that there are layers to me as there are layers to them, and this is just one piece of my identity. Yes, it defines a lot of things, but it's out of choice. So, Mom being a mother of 3,
You're talking about your mama.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you have 2 sisters. Jeanann has 2 super educated. They're all like these 3 sisters are uber educated. 2 doctor.
One is a doctor.
1 doctor. Jeanann's the lawyer.
And an engineer.
Jeez Louise.
Yes.
All born in LA.
Yeah.
Yes. All
LA.
Born here. All highest degree of education.
Yeah.
Which is also an anomaly. It's a contrast. And that's why I love having you on the show because at the root of a lot of women who are in this situation, not your situation, yours is progressive, they're not allowed to get an education.
Yes and no.
Tell me.
Because
tell me.
Education is actually an essence of our faith. Like you need to be educated. You need to always work on your brain, on your knowledge, whether it's emotional knowledge, like educational knowledge, which I mean by going to school, educating yourself.
You mean institutionally, right?
Institutional. There we go. Institutional knowledge. Education is a big factor of our faith. You as a human being, let's step away from faith. You as a human being, you're always evolving, okay? You're always evolving. Mary, who was Mary at 20, is different than Mary at 30, than Mary at now. you're evolving both from an intellectual point of view, from an emotional point of view, spiritual point of view, everything. Even your physicality is evolving. So for you not to be educated means you're stagnant. And that's where the basis of education is. Like, you need to always be evolving. You always need to be knowledgeable of your surroundings, of books, of some people might not be institutionally educated, but they are educated. They're always reading books. They're always having philosophical discussions. And that is one basis of my faith that people always get wrong. And they get it wrong because people in their cultures abuse the power they have and preach in the name of the religion and say, no, you're not allowed to go to school anymore. You need to stay home. You need to work on getting a husband. You need to become a housewife. And that's opposite from the truth. I mean, the prophet in my faith, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his first wife, when his first marriage, she passed, and then he got married again. But Khadija radiallahu anha, she was one of the most prominent trade people, entrepreneurs in society at that time. She had one of the largest trade companies, you could say, and managed a slew of men and people underneath her that would basically import and export product. She was like an example, for women of my faith. But people just put that to the side. And it
was encouraged by her husband, right?
She was before she even met her husband.
But once she was with him,
yes,
it was encouraged.
It continued. It continued.
So
yes.
what I hear you saying is riveting. Is there has been an abuse of power. Religion has been taken advantage of by people who were opportunists. But that is not what's at the crux of this faith. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
That at the crux of this belief system is that women should be empowered through education. And the opportunity to have a job and support herself.
Islamically, when a woman is married, her money is her money. Her choice to work is her choice. She's not required to do household chores. She could ask for payment by her husband in order to do in exchange for those household chores. That is how extremely protective of a woman the basis of the faith is. But what happens is you grow up in a traditional household, per se, in a traditional society, and people do not educate themselves about the faith. For me, as a Muslim, my job is to educate myself. If this person said something, if it doesn't click in my head, or even if it does, let me research it. Let me review it. Let me ask about it. Is what he is saying or she's saying based on their experience because it's been passed down from generation to generation? Or is it truly part of the essence of what I am supposed to be practicing?
And you were encouraged to have this level of inquiry, right, by mom and dad?
Mom and dad and the society I grew up in. Yes. I mean, the religious scholar, his family that I grew up around in California, always inquisitive, always allowed me to basically fuel the fire. Even till now, I bring up discussions when I'm asked to speak at the mosque. I bring up discussions that people are uncomfortable with. They'll leave. Some people that are old school mentality will leave upset, But my role as a Muslim woman is to remind the younger generation that you have freedom. You have the ability to do what you please as long as you know it's within the proper bounds, because without boundaries, there's chaos, right? Society without boundaries, chaos.
Which is what we're seeing on the news in other places, right?
Yes.
How do you feel? Of course, it makes all of us sad. And I'm not going to be specific, but sometimes you sit in front of the TV and you watch and you just feel like, it's like you said, chaos. It's chaos. You see on the news, you're like, this is a disaster. I mean, women they're not even allowed to read. There's banned books and they have to,
yes.
I mean, they can only read what the Taliban has provided them. And even then it's like, you shouldn't be reading. You're a woman.
It angers me.
I was going to ask, what's your feeling? Like, it feels so devastating.
It angers me. It extremely angers me because I feel like this minority of individuals have tainted my belief system. And mind you, all
And your experience, because
and
it's
my
how people
experience.
perceive you now.
Yeah. And, you know, mind you that this has happened in all faiths.
Yeah.
It's just Islam now is the most, you could say, diverse faith because we physically practice, like you could see who we are.
Yeah. It's eye-catching.
It's eye-catching. But if
Yeah.
you study history, every religion has been hijacked to a certain degree by certain people. You know, it's just not to the extreme, or maybe because we have social media now and like we have the news and TV and all this stuff that's happened. Now it's out in the forefront. Well, from before it wasn't in the forefront. And it's just sad to see it in any faith, but especially in my faith, because it's so, when you understand the underlying purpose behind it, it's beautiful.
I love the way you describe it. And you can see I'm playing both sides.
Yes.
And
You're trying to get me all agitated.
I like to see you flustered and riled up. It's very sexy. I'm so lucky to have you as my friend.
Lucky to have you too.
Are just so delicious. Okay, but I want to mention something. You brought up a good point, because I was writing an article, and I remember I reached out to you. And you made some comment, very, very legal-esque rationale. It was really interesting. I never thought of it that way, because I kept saying, okay, but why? Why do you wear it? Why do you wear it? You don't have to wake up and put on the hijab. And you said, you mentioned it was a representation of your relationship with God.
Yes.
But you said, well, Mary, how is it any different from people in like Christianity, right? A lot of people love, and I have relatives, they'll wear the cross every day of their life, like a chain, like a necklace, right? And then what about tattoos? Like, I have a lot of relatives and people I know in the community, they have like a cross tattoo on their chest or their back that's this
My cousin
big.
has one across from here
the
to here.
arm, right? Like,
yeah.
And that was such a good point, and I never thought of that. And you were like, how is that any different? They choose to honor their God by having a ginormous tattoo, let's say, on their front chest. And I wake up and I put this shawl, this piece of cloth
Yes.
on my skin.
Yes.
I just wanted to, I don't know what else I have to say about that. I just wanted to digest that. It was a good point.
I think it helps people relate.
Yes, it helps people relate.
Yes, because no matter what I say, if somebody has a certain ideology about, or a certain idea about my ideology, unless they're open to hearing it, they're just going to stick to it. But when you try to relate to what they may know or are more familiar with, it might allow them to be more open to try to understand. Listen, I'm not asking anybody to practice like me. Everybody has their choice. I have friends of all shapes.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
And for the record, 2 decades in, I have never felt you trying to pull me over to the other side. You have never campaigned for it. You've been like, this is what I do. I'm not bugging you. It's all good. You do you.
No, because your belief system is between you and your God, right? And you choose how to practice it. I choose my belief system, and it's between me and my God, and I choose how to practice it. I honor you. I came to your church wedding. I loved it.
You did.
Yes.
I got to pull up those darn pictures.
I went up to the scholars in my mosque and I was like, their religious ceremony is so long. Ours is 5 minutes.
Thank God.
Why can't we have a long ceremony, make it more beautiful? And he's like, because in our religion, God just asks you to repeat a couple words. And I was like, but I want it long.
No, you don't. You do not want it long. No, you do not. If I knew that my wedding ceremony could be 5 minutes like yours, I'd wear a hijab. Okay, that was
you
so
don't have
long.
to wear the hijab, just like.
I mean, and it's in like a old lingo that nobody understands. It's not like.
But it was beautiful.
Thank you, my friend.
It was so beautiful. I was so honored to be there. Honestly,
that was a really big moment. Talk about things that I forgot, and you mentioned something. I now thinking about that was really beautiful because you did show up for my wedding. My wedding was really, really traditional.
Yes.
In my way and in my culture's way.
Yes.
And you really showed up for it. You sat in that church from A to Z. And again, I just wanted to bring it up because there is a stereotype. It's easy for me to dispel those stereotypes because I've had the luxury of knowing you for 20 years. Most people don't get that. You're also really progressive. There are a lot of women They're not, they're stuck. It's sad. It's hard. Like they didn't have the opportunities.
Yes.
They're dealing with domestic violence. They're afraid. They're afraid to do it. Their life can really depend on it. And we shouldn't push that to the side. There
No.
are women in this not in this religion, just in this
Belief system.
They are really scared for their life. Like they can be murdered. They can be locked up. Not in the US. There's a lot of countries that are run that way right now.
Yes.
And there are women in prison for showing a little bit of their hair at the front. There was an article recently, just the hijab was slightly back. Perhaps it's a little way for them to retaliate. I don't know what's happening, but I know factually they were recorded to be in prison for showing this much hair, like the front of their scalp where the hair line starts.
And this pisses me off.
It pisses
me off.
Devastating.
It is, because you're taking something that's so beautiful.
And crushing it.
And you're crushing it. And who are you to tell a person how to practice their faith? At the end of the day, it's between you and God. Okay? You want to run a society in a way that has like certain boundaries? Sure. But always remember that certain boundaries cannot cross lines. And this is their choice between them and their God, right? Like if they are, I know a lot of Muslims that don't cover. Most of my aunts don't cover. But it doesn't mean they're less of a Muslim. It doesn't mean that they have less of a belief system. It's just maybe they're not ready for that journey, or they don't believe that that journey is necessary for them to connect to God. And it doesn't make them any less of an individual. And at the end of the day, it's between them and God. Like God is the one to judge. You know, maybe some people have experienced trauma and they decided to take it off. Maybe, like you said, people live in a society where they are unable to have a voice, and this is their way of retaliating.
Right.
That is their choice. Who am I to sit here and judge?
Yes.
But I also ask you that you do not judge me. Because I am many layers of personality.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
we're going to get into that.
Yeah. So like, hijab doesn't take away from who you are. It adds to you. It protects you to a certain degree, I believe. You know, it allows you to see things from a different perspective as well. Because it's like, wait, why am I judging this person? Do I want them to judge me? I mean, hello, I look completely different than everybody else.
Yes.
Right?
And here's a spin on that. And then we're going to jump into a really shocking and interesting topic. But I want to wrap this part of our conversation up by mentioning when we were talking, you also, and you brought up the people having tattoos and that's their representation. You also said something that was powerful. You said, well, let's talk about feminism. Why isn't this feminism?
Exactly.
If somebody wants to look like be half naked, great. That's their version of feminism. And you were like, I love that. And you were like, this is my version of feminism. I have the right to say, I want to wear a scarf on my head. So what?
Exactly.
I thought that was powerful. I had not seen it that way. Doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with this conversation right now. Listeners might be wondering, like saying like that. I don't agree. That's totally fine.
Well, we could come back for more.
Come back for part 2. Okay. Part 2, Mary and Jeanann take Lebanon.
Hell yeah.
And we're going to that beach.
Oh yeah. I'll take you there.
And we're going to shimmy and dance on the beach.
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't need to just shimmy and dance on the beach. We could shimmy and dance everywhere.
And we sure do. We sure do. We shimmy through everything. And you have shimmied through a lot of difficult moments in life. And I want to bring that up because I really believe listening it and hearing it from someone else can change a person's life. Like,
yes,
you can't be what you don't see. I believe that. So like for me, I've seen people go through things or morph into something I want to become, and it's motivated me. So we're going to talk about the battle you had with obsessive compulsive disorder, popularly known as OCD. There are quite a few people who have it. Some people are hiding it, and it's become a secretive part of their life.
Yes.
Tell me, and I know we are both in cultures where something like OCD is
labeled as crazy.
So that's so it's labeled. Number 2, a lot of that labeling comes from the cultures and communities' lack of understanding, right?
Yes.
So let's call it lack of educational awareness. Like
Yes.
they don't really understand it. They haven't studied it.
Yes.
And it's not even worthy of a label to them. Like, that doesn't
No.
qualify.
They sweep it under the rug.
Right. It's not, even though it's in medical textbook, it doesn't count. So
No.
let's back up. Give me a short summary of at what point did you recognize that, okay, I'm battling with something. This is not the norm. So it starts with, how did I realize I'm battling with it? And then how did you come out to the community and to just even inner family? Because convincing family sometimes is harder than convincing everybody else around.
Yeah.
So start with that. Start with where you became aware of it.
Well, the more I work on myself and the more I do a lot of self-care, the more I recognize things from even my childhood that would have been hints that I have OCD.
Okay, give me an example, a snippet of something you remember as a child where now you're a child, so you're like,
yes,
I don't know.
I have a perfect example.
Give me one.
I love math, but I love to do math on paper a certain way. So I would wait till everybody went to bed and I would redo my math homework so it was organized in a way that I thought was perfect. And that is an early sign. Going back, talking to my therapists, it's definitely an early sign of what my OCD was. It was manifesting into my homework, making sure it looked good. Then the older I got and the more I became more educated about my religion, and then I became of age of like marriage, you're in college and things like that. And I had this, I wanted to be the perfect Muslim girl. So I would be the perfect future bride, right?
Like perfection. This concept of perfection.
Yes. And mind you, my mom and dad were like, you're not getting married or finding anybody till you're done with your education.
Interesting.
Like, you're finishing college, okay, you meet somebody, but your focus should be on your education and your life as a college student, not as a future bride, right?
Right. And I feel like in this moment, it wasn't about finding the right guy. It was this addiction and need to be perfect.
It was a need to be perfect. And it was focusing on a lot of flaws in me that would be amplified. And it started, so I have scrupulosity OCD. So what
is that?
Scrupulosity, so there's different branches of OCD. And scrupulosity of OCD focuses on your religious beliefs. So it takes a religious concept, and it just amplifies it.
Okay, just give me a basic example because I can't imagine.
So for example, before we pray, we do this abolition, right?
Explain what you're doing.
Yes.
For the listener.
So we do something called abolition. And so what we do is we wash our face with water. It's kind of just to mentally get you in the right state. Then you wash your right arm, your left arm, your hair. This is a shortened version. And then I just wipe my feet.
Okay.
And that's abolition.
Okay.
If you let a toot out, you break your abolition. So you have to.
If you what?
You let a toot out. You fart.
What does that mean? Oh.
You toot. You toot.
Oh my God. Wow. You're allowed to fart? I mean, you're not allowed. You're saying you're not allowed.
No. It's just like you always need to be in the state of purity just to pray, just to do your prayers.
But this is like a pre-prayer little ritual.
Yes.
Okay. And is this done privately? Like you go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah, you go to the bathroom.
So, okay, stop. Let's rewind. So, okay, before prayer, the ritual is you privately go into a restroom. You're not with a group, like washing your face, right?
No, unless it's like a public restroom, like at the mosque where
Okay.
there's more than one sink. Everybody goes in there, does
Got
it.
So you wash your face. It sounds like it's very spiritual. Like you wash your hands, you wash your feet. Okay, I got it. Okay.
And then you go pray.
Okay, and you should not let a fart out. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you not use the bathroom. This is a short condensed version, okay?
So no, like nothing dirty, like
yeah, like bodily fluid.
No defecating.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I did not know that. Okay.
Yes, there's always something new to learn,
something
right?
new. Okay.
And so I obsessed that. Did I fart? Did I not fart? Did I fart? Did I not fart? Did I fart? Did I not? Literally that.
So you're in prayer and your mind is.
Even in between, like walking from the sink to my prayer rug, I'm like, did I fart? Did I not fart? Should I do it again? Should I not do it again? And this is a condensed version. And then it escalated. It escalated to a point where one day I was in the bathroom for 3.5 hours and my parents were asleep. And I woke up my dad. I was screaming. I was like, there's something wrong with me. I need help. And what helped was one of my dad's best friends is a psychologist, and he called him up in the middle of the night. And so they actually they had a doctor medicate me because I was so distraught. And then he sat my parents down and was like, your daughter is suffering from XYZ.
And I'm guessing they were like confused and shocked.
Yeah.
Right.
I think my mom took it more harshly because, you're her daughter. I'm her daughter. She wants me to be perfect. She doesn't want anything wrong with me. She doesn't want me to suffer. Now, like, looking back at it, she's like, is my daughter crazy? That was the first word. And my mom's educated.
I know.
But for her, it's like, there's things that you subconsciously adapt from your culture.
You're conditioned.
Yeah. And if you're not aware of it, you just you forget.
Yeah.
And you go back to what you were subconsciously programmed to.
And I love that you brought it up. Your mom is very educated. You have the most educated women in your family. But yeah, and it's not her fault. It's just to acknowledge that you can have a Harvard degree, but your socialization and subconscious programming as children, all of us are part of that.
You know how to use the right words, Mary.
Yes, but like that's what you're saying. And I love your family's example because your mom is educated. And so that was a moment of, there's this really intellectual woman. She's battling this conditioning that you can't just shake it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she's very loving and supportive, but the struggle is real. So she then, it sounds like she had to have her own breakdown and her own journey of, wow.
I mean, it was a struggle for everybody because the first step is acceptance. And it took me a very long time to accept that I had OCD. I went to therapy, did all the things that I had to do, but I could not accept it because it took away. It's like, for me, it was like, who's going to marry a woman? Because I've always wanted my own family and I've always wanted my career. I was like, I could have it all. But who's going to marry a woman that has something wrong with her? Right? The words wrong.
Wrong.
Right? And
crazy. I could relate to that. Anything that goes wrong with a woman, you're depressed. Oh no, she's crazy.
Yes. And then my mom saying, what, are you saying my daughter's crazy? Like, are you saying this? Like, what does this mean? And they also didn't understand it cognitively, meaning they didn't understand the technicality of OCD and how it's the wiring of your brain. It's not, even if your daughter is crazy, but it's not something that is so drastic and so extreme. And I didn't understand it either. And even though I was attending therapy, I got better, but I plateaued.
Why?
I wasn't seeing the right therapist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And on top of that, it was like, don't tell anybody.
Who's saying this? Your mind is telling you this?
My mind's telling me this. Society,
family. Yeah.
Family. Family saying, no, nobody needs to know. This is yours. Yeah. You don't need to share it.
That's very
There's
common.
nothing wrong with you. But it's like, because of their fear of how people in society would react.
Yeah. And now you not only have a problem, but now you got to keep a secret.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of pressure.
And that pressure is worse than the actual secret.
And the OCD.
Yeah. Because
oh my God, this is mind-blowing. Yes. The pressure of keeping it a secret
is worse. And it feeds into it. It feeds into this theory that there's something wrong with you, that you're less than. I like to use this word less than because that's how I saw myself, as less than. And I still struggle with that sometimes, not because of the OCD, just in general. I'm very open about my emotional struggles. But
I love that. So empowering.
You're afraid to share, and like it's like you have this smile on your face and you're living, but you're secretly suffering. And what adds to the suffering is keeping it a secret. And I think it wasn't until like maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I mean, this post is on my Instagram.
Oh, I remember you came out of the OCD closet.
Yeah, I came out. Yes.
I didn't know, by the way. At that point, I had been your friend for 15 years.
And I trust Mary with my life.
Yes.
Like Mary knows every single thing about me, but because of this just pre-programming.
No, I understand.
It wasn't even her. It was
autopilot.
Just me. It wasn't Mary. It was just me. It was autopilot. Yeah. Like I didn't share with anybody.
And you were hiding it well. Like I've never seen it.
Yes.
I've never noticed it.
Yes.
So I remember you just to kind of go over it. You put a post, a beautiful post
about
on social media. It was written. That's what I remember, correct?
Yes, it was written with a picture, and it was in honor of Mental Health Awareness Day.
Okay, and that was, let's talk about that. Was that your way of coming out about
Yes.
it. Okay. And how was it scary to post it? It must have been terrifying.
It was scary. So what happened, just to go back a little, I got married, abusive relationship, emotionally abusive relationship, not physically. And it kept adding to my OCD started escalating.
Did he know?
He knew.
Okay.
And he used it against me.
Oh my goodness.
And he was just the wrong person. And it just escalated. And so when I got divorced, I was like, I need real help. Like, I need a real therapist. And my friend, who's a psychologist in Michigan, was visiting. And she's like, there's something off with you. Like, what's wrong? Talk to me. And I was explaining to her. She's like, girl, you need cognitive behavioral therapy. Where the hell have you been going for therapy all these years? And I was like, what the hell is this?
You're like Googling it.
I'm like, what's this? I was like, this is what I've been missing my whole life. And so with that therapy, I started gaining the courage and the self-confidence that I needed. And I was like, fuck it. Can I say fuck it?
Of course.
Yeah, I was like,
you can say anything here. This is the land of whatever you want it to be. But pause. How is cognitive therapy different from what you were getting before? Because it sounds like
talk therapy. Talk therapy is just you're talking it through. You're given tips and tricks, but cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy make you live through it. So if you have a fear, they're going to make you address that fear with your therapist present, and you're going to work through the fear until it becomes less and less in your mind. So you're rewiring what your brain believes so that that fear and that exaggeration is no longer there. So meaning like, wait, if you're not sure you farted, then you just move on. Just going back to my original example, you just move on. You just go and you do your prayers. Unless you're certain, you can't live within the what ifs.
So it's about letting go.
It's about letting go. Yes.
Wow.
And so
that's a big picture.
Yes. Yes. It's huge. And so my therapist, God bless her, she has changed my life so, so much. And I'm blessed to have her. And I was like, fuck it. I'm putting this post and I'm just going to let it all out because I don't need to be ashamed of what I have. It's just a piece of me the way other parts of me are a piece of me. It's just there. And then the next layer was...
Wait. You can't just go on. You got to pause. You posted, and I know your mom, like if I were you, just having been conditioned to be a good little Armenian girl, but I'm working on getting naughty. It's been a fun ride. My mom, I would be like,
together.
But I know if I post, I'm like, oh my God, I'm nervous that my mom's going to read this post. And I know your mom read the post.
Yes, she did read the post.
So let's talk about that. Not so much like what she said, just was there a little bit of like, oh, I shouldn't have done this? Because now you got to deal with a family that is freaking out that you publicized something that for decades you were told to keep a really private secret.
Well, you know when people say, I just want to light the fire and just let it...
Yes, let it rip.
Let it rip. That's exactly what I wanted.
You did do that.
And
you didn't take it down. I'm so proud of you.
And I was like, fuck it. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not ashamed of it. Whatever. And surprisingly, my mom liked the post.
She liked the post, but then she called you to say, what are you doing? Because she wants everyone to see she supports you.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
which she does.
She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, Mom, why should I be ashamed? What did Dr. Lesser say? What did Dr. Lesser tell us about my OCD? And it kind of clicked in her head. She's like, yeah. I was like, you want me to be proud of myself, but I can't hide this anymore, you know?
Wow.
And so I think it was liberating for everybody in the family.
I was going to say that. Sometimes our moms vicariously live through us. For example, like my mom was so supportive when I went to law school because she didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But this is one of those moments too. When we come out of whatever the closet is, OCD, being a good girl, they want to live through that. They're vicariously happy.
Yeah.
She must have felt little joy in that.
And I think what also helped is because OCD really breaks you down, breaks down your personality, breaks down your confidence. You don't have any confidence. You have self-loathe. You have all this stuff. And I think because she saw me at a point that was an empowered position that she's like, okay, she has the energy to deal with this. She has the strength to deal with this. So she's not going to allow anybody's negative comments to affect her. So roll with it. Go with it.
Wow.
And I think that's very important to recognize because sometimes it's not just the societal like stigmas, because a big part of it was, but I think it's also their fear of your ability to handle what will come at you, that backlash.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. Because once you survive the backlash inside the home and those four walls, then there's aunts, uncles, cousins, I don't know what, eligible bachelors, potential bachelors.
I didn't verbally come out to my cousins till about a month ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so they must have not seen your social media posts.
They must have not seen my social media. They maybe thought, because everybody uses OCD very loosely. So they're like, oh, I have OCD, blah, blah, blah.
It's like a ingest sometimes. Yes, it's become slang.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, but only when I'm trying to be like, no.
This is serious.
This is clinically diagnosed.
Right.
This is not like, oh, I have something minor.
No.
This is like something that, not to say there's something wrong with me, but this is really like.
It could affect your life if it's not under control.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
And we were in the middle of a conversation, and we live all over California, so we don't get to see each other, but there was a death in the family, so we were all there. And we were just going from one thing to another topic. And they brought up my ex-husband. And
are they were they trying to stir up the shit or what?
No, my cousins were like, we never liked that fucker. And I was like,
my. Now you tell me?
I know. I was like, now you're telling me you never liked them? Like, and we're all talking about this. And they were just kind of like, okay, so how did you discover, and I was telling them how the marriage.
Oh God, why don't they know any, this happened a long time ago.
Because
they don't have any updates?
No, because literally it was like, it was like a domino effect, right? It was, my OCD was getting worse. I was like,
divorce.
I was like, I can't deal with this man. Either I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to kill him, or I need to leave or he's going to kill me because he was.
Because it's hard to live in a environment where everyone's so unhappy.
Exactly.
It can really kill you. It's not normal to do that.
But also for somebody to purposely trigger things about your OCD.
Right. It's like giving an alcoholic a shot of vodka.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
no.
And they're just like slowly.
Triggering.
Yeah. And so I was like, and I explained the situation and I was like, well, I'm clinically diagnosed. I was like, oh, I have OCD. And they're like, oh, we all have OCD. And I was like, no.
Here's the papers.
I am clinically diagnosed with OCD. And they're like, what? And I was like, and there's nothing wrong with me.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said it like that.
Yeah. Because I wanted them to know that in my hurt, in the deepest of my pain, I also held a deeper secret. At that time, which was my OCD.
Wow.
And just, you see a person, but you don't know what their internal suffering is. So don't judge a person until you've actually taken the time to talk to them.
Oh my gosh. Jeanann, that is the epitome of my podcast.
Yeah.
That what you just said is the purpose and essence of my whole podcast.
Yes.
Everyone has a unique, I'm just so
it's chilling.
Happy that you said that. Everyone has a unique story. And it does not matter if the person in front of you has tattoos, a hijab, is naked. I haven't had a naked guest yet, but it's
you never know.
I never know. Hey, no problem. Yeah, but you just don't know the story behind the eyes until you give that person a moment. And of course, they need to be ready to lend their soul to you.
Exactly.
Which you are doing today. Like, it's just.
Thank you.
All these years later, I'm still blown away at your ability to live an authentically honest life.
I try. And the struggle is hard and it's very real. And, I don't lie. I have a psychiatrist, a psychologist,
Amen.
And you go
Welcome
through
to my club.
Ups and downs. It's literally a roller coaster sometimes, just because you see a positive Jeanann or maybe a positive Mary doesn't mean that the night before she didn't have a rough day and she didn't break down and cry and question her existence. But that's also natural. We forget that these roller coasters, they don't have to be extreme, but these emotions are natural. We're supposed to experience them. We're not supposed to always be happy. We're not supposed to always be in la la land and like having a good time. You're supposed to experience the negative in order to appreciate the good, and experience the good in order to appreciate the negative. That's the only way you'll grow. But for me, my point was also that like, don't, in our culture, oh, she hasn't talked to me in a year. She thinks she's stuck up. Look at her. She thinks she has a great career. It's like
Assumptions.
exactly. I'm like, wait up, rewind.
Yeah.
Do you know maybe why she hasn't talked to you in a year? Do you know maybe that she was going through this personal journey of hers to make herself better mentally and emotionally? You don't. And that's why it goes back to the essence of your podcast.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Jeanann, I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to close by saying I couldn't have put it more beautifully myself, what you said and why we're here.
Yes.
Like we all do it. It's part of everyday life. We meet somebody in the supermarket. We make a quick little judgment in our brain. But the point is to move away from that and to work on not doing that, because we all do have a story. And our stories aren't happy or sad. I think that's why on the podcast, I love to talk about everything, highs and lows, because that's what life is.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for coming in and showing us that we can find freedom of choice in things, even when people perceive it differently, that's not our problem.
No.
That you can be empowered and still stick to your religious mindset and belief system, and that you can come out of the OCD closet or whatever it is you're battling with. No matter how traditional your family is, you can come out, you can be honest, and it's going to be okay.
Yes.
It's going to be okay. And I mean, like, time went by so fast.
I know.
And there's so much more, but I just want to thank you for coming today. You left a very lucrative job. You have a big career. You're here. And promise me one thing, you're going to come back for a bigger conversation.
I was just going to ask, how many more times can I come?
We can do this forever, right?
I know, right?
I love you. I'm
love
across
you
this
too.
table, across this microphone. I want to say it's been like the best hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. It was a pleasure and it was an honor, and thank you so much. And I'm so proud of everything that you've accomplished.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you, listeners. There you go. So much to digest. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye. Dear listeners, if you like what you heard, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and follow me on my journey on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.